Not everyone was thrilled that Nixon was going to China. Led by columnist William F. Buckley, several prominent conservatives announced their decision to suspend support for the president temporarily. And a GOP group in California voted to censure Nixon on the trip to China. The president reached out to the most popular conservative politician, naming California Governor Ronald Reagan as his personal Asia emissary for a 2-week trip to 6 countries, including South Vietnam. And 1 month later, Reagan announced that he would work for Nixon in the 1972 campaign. In a speech to a GOP convention in California, the Times reported, Reagan defended Nixon's diplomatic opening. As Mr. Reagan quoted the conservatives, they have said, if Hubert Humphrey had been elected and had made this announcement, we would be rising up in a storm of opposition. Of course we would, Mr. Reagan said, adding that he believed this would have been justified because Mr. Humphrey is a Democrat. In the governor's opinion, Democratic presidents have brought back the bitter fruit of appeasement from Yalta and Potsdam, snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, and lacked the will and wisdom to exact a victory as the price for the young Americans who died in Vietnam. This is a Republican president. The president has said only, I will go and talk. I have no intention of abandoning old friends or allies, Mr. Reagan added, until he gives some hint that he has undergone a massive change of personality. I think he deserves our confidence. Leading Democrats also convinced themselves that the president was committed to South Vietnam's survival. Clark Clifford, Lyndon Johnson's last defense secretary, charged that Nixon would continue the war indefinitely, saying the Republican Party, which in 1968 pledged an end to the war, in 1972 offers what appears to be perpetual war. Other Democratic politicians picked up on the charge of perpetual war, not realizing that they were giving the president more credit than he deserved. Nixon was not committed to South Vietnam's survival. He was committed to his own survival. He could accept a communist victory in Vietnam, just not a democratic victory in America. In January 1972, the president revealed that he had sent his national security advisor to Paris for secret negotiations with the North Vietnamese since 1969.
Dr. Kissinger has traveled to Paris 12 times on these secret missions.
This announcement got Kissinger back on the front page of the New York Times under a headline dubbing him a super secret agent. When Nixon went to China the following month, which Nixon was first to point out was something only Nixon could do, Chairman Mao Zedong needled him about Kissinger's fame. The president replied, he doesn't look like a secret agent. The substance of the talks stayed classified for decades. The president, seen here waiting for Zhou Enlai, assured the Chinese that he was leaving Vietnam soon. The Chinese urged him to leave Vietnam even sooner. And the Chinese premier warned that even after Nixon finished withdrawing American troops, China would continue to support the North in its war with the South. Reporters, as ever, were shut out of the substantive talks. Dan Rather was forced to resort to standing on a street corner reading a Chinese newspaper. The First Lady picked up some of the slack.
Does the president particularly like Chinese food? Does he have it at home?
Yes, he does. He really enjoys it.
Deprived of real news, the broadcast media devoted massive amounts of airtime to the trip's sheer spectacle.
The President in China, a night at the ballet. This broadcast is sponsored by
Western Electric. We make things that bring people closer.
Nixon returned from the Chinese summit in political triumph. Soon, however, the North Vietnamese launched a full-scale invasion of the South, giving the president an opportunity to implement an exit strategy that the Republican National Committee had secretly poll-tested 3 years earlier.